Your finger's probably in the way of the camera.
It's not.
No? Okay, so your finger is in the way of the camera right there.
It's not.
You're definitely using it, covering up the lens speed finger. We're going with Joe Salatin style tractors. We're not experimenting, we're just going with what works. And I want to show you one thing that the danger of something like this is that you may not be able to think beyond the instructions. For the instructions, it calls for a table saw. Now, we're starting with 12-foot dimensional lumber. And if you've ever used a table saw to cut that, I mean, you're talking about a pretty, big jig to keep that, to be able to run that through, or a big table extension for that saw. So I'm not using a table saw, I'm using a circular saw. And I want to just show you quickly how you can just rip a board with a circular saw. So you measure out your thirds, you mark that, you bring your circular saw over. Your circular saw came with one of these in the box, and you probably just threw it to the side. In fact, I hadn't used mine in a while, and I lost the screw that tightens it down. You'll never believe this. The first screw I picked up to try out and see if it worked. So I think today is my lucky day, because typically I'd be looking for something like that for hours and then have to go to the hardware store and buy it. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna mark it. We're gonna set this to those marks, right? We're going to make sure we set our depth just a hair. It's up to you. If we're working with, if you're working with something dry, then just set it a hair above cutting all the way through, and you won't have a problem. This is pretty wet, pressure treated lumber, so I'm setting it just a hair lower. We're using a table saw, we're using a circular saw. We've got our width set, and all we've got to do So this one might have been a little thicker than the previous one I set, but there we go. Now we have our third.